To those of us who are visiting virtually, this is going to be an exciting session, if I do say so myself. I am Diane Southard, founder and CEO of Your DNA Guide. And for those of you who are here in person, feel free to come by our booth, which is literally just across the hall from here. It's booth 403. And if you're want to visit our booth online, you can just go to the RootsTech exhibitors online, and you can see us there as well. So, without further ado, let's talk about how just one DNA match can help you find your missing ancestors. So when I was little, we had this set of Disney books, and this was one of my very favorites. It's called Button Soup. And I think I liked it because Daisy is so clever that she's able to make an entire delicious soup with her Uncle Scrooge using just one button, because Scrooge is too Scroogey to put anything else in the soup. So what I'm proposing today is similar, that with just one match, you can create an entire family tree. And if not an entire family tree, you can at least create a branch of your family tree. Now I can tell there's some skeptics out there. You're thinking, Diane, let's be real. You can't build an entire tree with just one DNA match. Well, we'll see. How about I'll check in with you at the end, and you tell me if you think you could build your tree with just one DNA match. So I do want to be clear and caveat this just a tiny bit. So the same DNA match is not the be-all, end-all, cure-all for every missing ancestor. It means that you need to have a strategy to find the right match to match your DNA question. Okay, so yes, I do believe just one match can help you, but you'll need one match for each question that you have. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is make sure your goal with this match is in range of autosomal DNA testing. So autosomal DNA testing is really good at helping you find your 3 times great-grandparent or closer. So I hear a little echo of myself. Are you guys hearing an echo, or is it just me? Just me. Okay. I can probably handle hearing myself twice. I don't want you guys to have to hear myself twice. Okay. So we're looking to find our 3 times great-grandparent or closer when we're using autosomal DNA. And the reason for that really is because when you think about the kind of cousins you're going to need to help you answer your question, if you're looking for a 3 times great-grandparent, you're going to need 4th cousins to help you, which is fine because with 4th cousins, you're going to share DNA with them about half of the time. So if you have 10 true blue, honest-to-goodness 4th cousins who take a DNA test, you will likely only share DNA with 5 of them. But still, with those 5, it would be enough to help you find the ancestor that's missing. But if we went back, say, to that 4 times great-grandparent level, you would be dealing with 5th cousins. And you're going to share DNA with your 5th cousins less than 50% of the time. And the amount of DNA you're going to share with those 5th cousins is so small, it's very hard to validate. So do yourself a favor and stay within that 3 times great or closer range. All right. I hope you have an ancestor in mind that's a 3 times greater or closer that you are trying to research this weekend. And I'm going to show you how to find the one DNA match that's going to help you research that missing ancestor. There are 2 ways we can go about finding this match. The first is by a defining feature of this match, and the second is by using a strategy I call best known match. So let's start by understanding the difference between these two strategies. The first is if you're just kind of starting out in DNA, and I've talked to a lot of you at my booth who you're like, yeah. In fact, one man looked so sheepish when he came up. He was like, yeah, I have taken a DNA test, it was a long time ago, and I haven't really done anything with it. So if you're kind of feeling that way, kind of sheepish, then just start with this first strategy I'm going to teach you. It's just finding the match we're going to use by defining feature. If you feel like you're ready to really embrace this DNA thing, really learn how to use a really effective strategy, then I'm going to teach you using that best known match. Okay, but let's start by understanding what I mean by defining features. So these three all of our testing companies have some kind of filtering system you can use on your DNA matches, but I'm going to highlight from these three companies the filters that you might want to use to find this match that's going to make a difference in your family history research. So let's start by looking at 23andMe. It's important to understand that within the features at 23andMe, all these things we're going to be searching on are based on user-entered data, which means some people haven't entered anything, and some people have entered a lot of things, and some people have entered stuff that's wrong. Okay, so you just need to know what you're working with. So on the left side of your match page at 23andMe, you're going to see these different filters. I'm suggesting that you might want to look at ancestor birthplaces as well as family names. So by clicking on these filters, you're able to ask the database, hey, is there anyone that's taken a DNA test that's listing an ancestor birthplace in the area where I'm researching? So it's a little bit of a shot in the dark if you're researching like North Carolina, because there's a lot of people in North Carolina that aren't related to you. But it's a little bit more helpful if you're looking for a foreign country place, because the matches will be fewer, and the chances that you're connecting to that person on that particular section of the world are better. Okay, so all these things that I'm teaching you here today, we do go over in our tours. We have tours for every DNA testing company to kind of walk you through this kind of thing. At 23andMe, they have an advanced subscription they call 23andMe Plus, and it gives you these advanced filters, which can be really useful. So you're able to then sort and look through your DNA matches for those who have a specific ethnicity or population group that they belong to. So again, not that helpful if your whole family tree is British and Irish, but possibly helpful if you are researching the one branch in your family that's Korean or Italian or African or something, right? Something that's a little bit different and outside of what the rest of your family tree looks like. You might be able to find matches who are specific to this particular region in the world, and that might be enough. 23andMe also lets you look for these matches on a map. So again, maps that show this kind of information in the United States might not be that helpful because this is reporting the current location of the match. These are all modern locations. So if you're looking for an ancestor, again, from North Carolina in 1870, all the people living in North Carolina right now, maybe not that helpful. But if you're looking for an ancestor who immigrated from Germany in 1920, people who are currently living in Germany and are your DNA matches might actually be helpful. Okay? Similar filters are found at all of our companies. So I'm just going to kind of run through the others really quickly. So at MyHeritage, if you're on that match page, you're going to click on the filters, and it's going to bring down this menu. You're going to click on tree details, and then again, you'll see very similar choices, has a shared surname or has a shared place. Now, MyHeritage has an advantage that 23andMe doesn't have, in that 23andMe has no family trees. Like, there's no way for you to tell anybody your entire tree. You have to, like, hand enter surnames and locations. So at MyHeritage, all of this shared surname, shared place information is just pulled off the tree that you've connected to your DNA sample. So theoretically, the results here are going to be better than what you're going to get from 23andMe, just because most of the people on 23andMe have not hand-entered all of this data. Okay, but it is still this is still reliant on user-entered data, right? This is the family tree I created at MyHeritage. So these are not genetic distinctions. This is all just genealogy. Okay, so I can also click on locations, and I can filter again by certain countries, which, if you are looking for a recent connection to a different country than the one your family is from, these might be helpful. So Ancestry, again, you can click on matches and then click on this filter by location. It's going to pull up this map. And again, these are locations of the person who has tested. These are not ancestral locations. These are people who have tested their personal locations. But you can also, at Ancestry, if you're on your origins or your ethnicity results, there's a little compare button up at the top, and you can click on that. And that's going to let you compare your ethnicity origins to your DNA matches. So the first page that comes up is the regional ethnicity information. We talked about this a little bit yesterday if you were in my first class, but regional information tells you about where your ancestors were from thousands of years ago. So again, unless you're looking for people who are a very distinct ethnicity, think like Jewish, then this kind of broad category isn't going to be helpful. But if you click on the journeys, remember the journeys tell you where your ancestors were in hundreds of years, so 100, 200, 300 years ago, that genealogy sweet spot that we're always looking for. So you can see here I've highlighted the journeys that my dad has, that Arkansas, Central South Arkansas, Southwest, Southern, Midwestern settlers, and West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee settlers. So each of these is a distinct genetic category. This is not user-entered data. This is all genetic data. So I can see my dad is a part of these journeys, and I can see that he has matches that also are a part of these journeys. So you can think of a journey as like this exclusive club that's kind of hard to get into. And so when you see someone who's a part of this same club, you can be more confident that you do share a common ancestor with them. And the club name gives you a clue as to which line you may be connected on. And so understanding people who share your journeys and connecting to them on those specific lines could be a way for you to find the matches that matter most. You can also review the journeys that you don't have. So you can see this individual has several journeys from Ireland that we don't have. So this tells me this person has significant ancestry from Ireland, a place we don't have, which means if I'm looking at this person's family tree, there's going to be a whole branch or branches that I know I don't connect to, which is going to make it easier for me to find the branch I do connect to. So don't just look at the things you have in common, but also look at the things you don't have in common. Sometimes what you don't share is just as important as what you do share. All right, so using these filters at these companies might help you find the match that matters. You can also, at every company, search that list by surname. So if you know the surname of the ancestor you want to research, there's no love lost by just showing up at your DNA testing company website, clicking on matches. Right there somewhere at the top is going to be a search button. You click on that search button and just enter the surname that you're researching. Now, if you're researching like Miller or Jones, this isn't going to work. Okay, but just this morning at my booth, I was talking to a gentleman, and he showed me that he had done this successfully. So I was planning on showing you this example, and I was going to take it out, but I thought I put it in here, I might as well show you. But then I'll show you his. So my example was, I went to MyHeritage and I put the surname Harvey, which is going to be the subject of my free webinar next week. So even though I'm giving 3 lectures at Roots Tech, I was like, there's so much more I want to tell you. So we're giving a free webinar next week, and I'm going to be talking about this Harvey family. And you can sign up at our booth if you would like to come, or at that yourdnaguide.com/rootstech. But anyway, so I just searched by the surname Harvey, and I started scrolling. And of course, the people at the top are my family, because we all have that surname in our tree. But I did find a match that I was interested in. And you can see this match has a father named Glenn Harvey, but no additional people. So immediately I was like, oh, cool, who's Glenn? And I started looking, and I thought, Diane, you have Roots Tech presentations to prepare. You can't be chasing after Glenn, okay? But tomorrow and next week, as I'm getting ready for the webinar, I'm gonna be trying to figure out who this is. And again, this is a match I just found by just searching by that surname. So earlier today in the booth, I was talking to Robert Hart, and he said, we weren't talking about this at all. He's like, yeah, so I just went to Ancestry and I searched by this surname of this ancestor that he was researching, and he found a key match, just searching by surname. So this does work. It does lead you to matches that matter. You don't have to do something fancy and complicated. Sometimes it is as simple as just searching your match list by surname. Okay? So by defining feature is a great way to start. If you felt anxious or worried or nervous or just hesitant about diving into DNA matches, just try this. Just take a handful of surnames that you've been interested in, search for them in the search box, use that filter to play around with locations, and just explore, see what you can find. But if you want to be more targeted, if you want to be more methodical, then I'm going to recommend using a best known match strategy. So a best known match has the ability to hand pick the matches that matter to your research goal. So think of your match list, that massive list of thousands of names that you've never seen before, and imagine a miracle happens and you're able to filter that match list to find just the matches that are going to help you with the one branch of your family you're trying to research. Wouldn't that be a gift? Wouldn't that be amazing? You can do it with just one match. That match is your best known match, or BKM is sometimes how we abbreviate it at Your DNA Guide. Your best known match is a descendant of the ancestor you want to research through a different line than your own. Did you write that down? Your best known match is a descendant of the ancestor you want to research through a different line than your own. So this strategy is part of what we call the plan. And it looks kind of beautiful, but also a little bit complicated. But we're just gonna walk through it kind of one step at a time. So the plan begins with finding this best known match. And once you've found this best known match, it's going to help you create what we call a network. A network is just a group of people in your DNA match list that share a common ancestor with each other and with you. So you can think about it like this. If you used a second cousin who's a descendant of your great-grandparents, and you had 4 of these second cousins, you could group your matches into 4 groups that represent each of these 4 great-grandparent couples. This will work unless your great-grandparents are related to each other and you have endogamy, in which case we have to try something else, which we're not going to talk about right now. But if you do have endogamy, you can meet us in the booth at 403, and we can still help you. So the best known match is where we start with this entire process. And again, it would take us a while to go through the entire plan, so we're going to simplify it today and just talk about the best known match plus the shared matches tool, which is available at all of our companies. The combination of those two things creates a network, this group of individuals that can help you find these 4 groups of people. Okay, so remember, I told you you needed a different one match depending on which branch of your family you were researching. So again, you would need a different best known match for each of these 4 different lines. So of course, the question then becomes, well, how do I find said person? How do I find this magical best known match? Well, 3 of our companies have pretty easy ways for you to find a best known match. So at Ancestry, we're going to use through lines. At MyHeritage, we'll use the theory of family relativity. And at 23andMe, we'll use what they call the family tree. So I want to teach you how to use these tools, but they are what I call cheating tools. Okay, now we've all been taught since we were very small that cheating is bad, it's wrong. But guys, it's fast and efficient, okay? So we are going to use these cheating tools, but we're going to do it with our brains on. Okay, so each of these tools is cheating for us. They're doing work that we didn't do. They're taking advantage of family trees that we didn't build. So yes, sometimes they might not be right, but they're a great place to start. Okay, so let's talk about these tools and kind of their defining features. First of all, let's talk about access. How are you going to access these tools? So to access through lines at Ancestry, you need to have your family tree linked to your DNA sample. Okay, the same is true at MyHeritage, but at 23andMe, it's kind of open, public, everybody does this. You don't have to do anything special. Okay, so first step at MyHeritage or Ancestry is you have to link your DNA test to your family tree. Okay, again, if you need help doing that, feel free to visit us at the booth. Okay, the next thing is price, access. At both Ancestry and MyHeritage, you have to have some level of membership to their websites in order to access these tools. So again, I'm not going to go through all the details of all that. We have it at the booth if you're interested and you're curious. But you'll have to pay something, essentially. Above and beyond just taking a DNA test, you're going to have to pay something to have access to these tools. At 23andMe, it's just included. You get it as part of taking that test. All right, so that's access. The next thing to remember is that while these tools are going to look like family tree tools, they're going to look like genealogy tools, they are genetic tools. Okay, they're based on sharing DNA with other people. These tools don't work unless you share DNA with people. So just really keep that in the forefront of your mind as we're evaluating these tools. Additionally, both Ancestry and MyHeritage are relying heavily on their vast, massive family tree network. They have a back end of their system that has all of our trees all kind of intertwined and related to each other, and they can see all the things. So they're pulling on that knowledge to fuel their tool. 23andMe has nothing. They have no genealogy information that they're pulling from to contribute to their family tree tool. And we'll see that as we come forward. All right, so let's start with Ancestry. Their Throughline tool, again, to remind you, you have to have your tree linked to your DNA, and you have to have given them some money. And then you'll have access to their Throughline tool. So if you're at Ancestry and you're looking, this is my dad, James Hazelwood. You're under that matches section, and I'm going to click by ancestor. Now there's a lot of ways to get to the Throughline tool, but this is one of them. And it's going to show you underneath that section if you've linked your tree to your DNA test. Okay, so if you see something down here like you see right here, you've done it, good job. You linked your tree. So if that's there, then when you go to the Through Lines tool, it will be populated. Now, if you haven't yet, and you come here and there's nothing, you can still link your tree to your DNA, and then wait till tomorrow, and then you'll have Through Lines. They refresh it often. Okay? So all of these people that you see here are in my family tree, and they've been pulled into this tool because I told Ancestry these were my relatives. Okay? I can see that I've got these green relatives that are like, have a little dotted line around them. Those people are not in my tree. Those people Ancestry thinks should be in my tree. So they have a way you can evaluate them here. And in fact, this couple down here, this Jonathan Harby and Isabella Pruitt, are the subject of our case study next week in that webinar. We'll be investigating if I should be adding them to my tree or not. So let's click on my ancestor, Josephine Merhard. She's someone I know and I'm confident is my ancestor. And you can see here, you can see my dad with the cutest picture ever, right? Isn't that darling? I have a big picture of it in my office. I love it so much. So there's my dad, and then we have the Willis's 8 descendants, Ida's 3 descendants, LaForest's 3 descendants, and so on. And so when we're looking at this, we're asking, who are our best known matches? Do you guys remember the definition of a best known match? I hear different line. Yes. This person is a descendant of the ancestor you want to research, Josephine, through a different line than my own. So not Joseph J., one of the other kids, right? So on this Through Lines tool, by essentially one click, I clicked on Josephine, and this showed up. And I have found best known matches, theoretically, that connect me to Josephine. Now remember, descendants of Joseph J. are not best known matches because they're through my own line, okay? So maybe we'll click here on LaForest's and see his 3 descendants. And the thing we want to do here is we want to do what I call check genetics versus genealogy. Remember, guys, we just cheated to get here. We didn't do this research. I don't know who Benjamin Butterfield is. Through Lines has told me this person is my second cousin. I want to make sure that's true. This is where you're using your brain to make sure the answer that you just cheated to get is right. Okay? So I want to ask, is the amount of DNA, the genetic relationship I have with this person, is it consistent with the genealogy information? So he's supposed to be a second cousin. He's sharing 224 centimorgans. So I'm going to click on 224 centimorgans, and it's going to show me this information. It's going to say, okay, people that share 224 centimorgans have these relationships. So you can see second cousin right there. In general, as long as the relationship is listed, you're fine. Most of the time. Okay? So it's great if you've got more than one person off the branch and you can click on all of them and see that they're all validated or verified in this case. Okay? But even just one is enough. Okay? So that means that this person is now a verified best known match, and I can take them through the rest of the plan. So this person, even if I only had just one of them, would be enough to move forward in my research. Okay? Because again, it just takes one best known match to help me create that network. So if you don't have one, because sometimes we don't, there's still a way you can move forward, and I will be talking about that in this webinar next week as well. Okay, So we talked about through lines. Let's talk about the theory of family relativity. This is from MyHeritage. And again, you have to have your tree linked to your DNA, and you have to have given MyHeritage some money. And then you'll have access to the theory of family relativity. So it's found here under all tree details. It's one of the filters you can use. And then you'd click on has theory of family relativity. And then it's going to show you these paths of relationship. It's going to show you possible ways that you might be related to this individual. And oftentimes it's going to give you a couple of choices, and it will rate them for you and tell you how likely they think this genealogy path is the way that you and your DNA match are connected to each other. But no matter what the path, you can still check genetics versus genealogy. You can still ask, is this guy David, is he sharing the right amount of DNA to be my third cousin once removed? So at MyHeritage, you're going to be able to click on a match, and then you're going to scroll down until you see this kind of relationship section of the match page. I'm going to click right there on Show More Relationships. And I like this diagram. I'm a visual learner, so I love that it's showing me, okay, Diane, you and David could have any of these purple relationships. So you can see third cousin once removed is only 3.7% likely. Much more likely you can see is that third cousin level, like a lot more likely. So what do I do? Is this a verified match or not? It's hard to say. And again, I would want to look at more matches. I would thoroughly evaluate the family history, make sure that everything works, which I did. Like, his genealogy is solid. It looks like we just share more DNA than the average third cousins once removed. So I would still move forward using him as a best known match. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I look at their genealogy and I'm like 0 sources between you and your great-grandparents, not good. And if I have another match I can use, I don't want to waste my time going through and verifying their genealogy. I just skip the match and I move on to another one. Because often there are more choices. But sometimes you only have the one, and so you can just move forward with that one. All right, let's look at the 23andMe tool. Again, this one's open, available to anybody who's taken a 23andMe test. It is completely DNA-based. There is no genealogy involved in the creation of this tree. And it's really important to remember that, because when you click on View Your Tree here at 23andMe, and then it shows you a very tree-like structure, it's very tempting to think they've done genealogy. But they haven't. In fact, it's cooler than that. I know, I probably shouldn't say anything's cooler than doing genealogy at a genealogy conference. But guys, they have created this family tree structure entirely using genetic relationships. And I just think that's amazing. This is what we're all trying to do at all of our companies, really. We're trying to take our entire DNA match list and make it into a family tree. And 23andMe is doing that. Now, they're only doing it for your closest matches, which is fine. But when you're looking at this tree structure, just remember, it's not a family tree. This is a genetic representation of relationships. Okay, so let's look at it a little more closely. These people down here at the bottom are theoretically best known matches. But who's your common ancestor with them? How do you use this to figure out who you're connected with, right? So it's really about looking at the levels of relationships. So you can see me down there, and we're going to go up through my dad's line. Now, we only know this is my dad's line because my dad has tested. Now, we're all tempted as genealogists to think men on the left, women on the right. That's not the case here. So up here at this grandparent level, I don't know which gender is on the right and which is on the left. Okay, so don't let your genealogy brain distract you. These are genetic relationships, okay? So there's a grandparent level, there's a great-grandparent level, and then up here is going to be our 2 times great-grandparent level. So if I could show you this whole tree, which is huge and really hard to show on a slide, this match down here at the bottom connects with me at that 2 times great-grandparent level. So this person is some kind of third cousin to me, but I still have to figure out who that couple is. I have to do genealogy. It's obviously on my dad's side, but beyond that, man, I gotta figure it out. Okay, so yes, the tool does deliver to you potential best known matches, but you kind of have to do sometimes a lot of genealogy to figure out who that couple is up there. They're one of my 2 times great-grandparent couples, but I have 8. Well, 4 on my dad's side. So 1 in 4 chance I'll get it right, like figuring out who that is, right? So there's strategies that you can use to figure all that out, but it is just a little bit more of a climb when you're there at 23andMe. So here are all of our cheating tools. The fastest way for you to find that best known match so you can begin the plan. Remember, our best known matches have the ability to hand pick the matches that matter to our research goal. Known matches help us find mystery matches. And remember, they do that when we use the shared matches tool on these matches. They help us find that missing ancestral couple. So let's say you and I wanted to find the answer to this genealogical research question. You can see you down there at the bottom, and there's your ancestor, Albert Richter. We're not sure who his partner was. We have some records, we have some documents, they're conflicting, and it's kind of between one of 2 women who could have filled this role, and we would really love to know who it is. So how can we identify our best known match for this scenario? Remember, we're researching this line, so our best known matches are going to be descendants of Albert through a different line than our own. Can you guys identify our best known matches? Yeah, you're right. So Tom, Steve, and Jean are all descendants of Albert through a different child than ours. We're descendants from Clara, right? So remember, each of these people is going to represent a different genetic branch, essentially, of this tree we're trying to research. And Brian is not a BKM because he's a descendant of Clara, as are we. Okay, now, if Brian was our only choice, we could use him, but we have to do a little bit extra work, and that's fine. But we don't need him because we've got Tom, Steve, and Jean as our best known matches. Now, as I said at the beginning, we don't need all 3. It's nice to have them, but that would ruin my analogy. So we're going to just use Tom. Tom is our magic button. Tom, we're going to create an entire tree branch out of just Tom. Okay, so we are going to take Tom and we are going to use the shared matches tool on him. The resulting group of people are going to be individuals who share DNA with Tom and they share DNA with you, which means they're somehow related to this Richter line. So by just using the shared matches tool on one best known match, you are going to find yourself a network of individuals who have the potential to help you answer your research goal. So once you've found these individuals, you could just do genealogy to figure out how they are related to each other, so then you could figure out how you are related to them. The problem is, the further back you go, so we're looking for a 2 times great-grandparent, and if you're looking for a 3 times great-grandparent, the problem's even worse. It's that you have to do so much of other people's genealogy. It's not like all of these DNA matches suddenly have these big, beautiful trees. They don't. So you spend a lot of your genetic genealogy research time doing other people's genealogy because you have to push their trees back to what I call your generation of connection. You know your line all the way up to your Richters. You're looking for her, but you're really looking for her parents. So you're going to need to know these people's 2 times and 3 times great-grandparents. It's a lot of work, and it can be frustrating, and it can take a lot of time, and you don't always find the answer you're looking for. So what you really need is a more efficient way to handle this due genealogy step. And that more efficient way involves another tool we call SMOMS. At least that's what I call it. It's the Shared Matches of Matches tool. It's meant to make that due genealogy step easier. So most of our companies have some form of this tool that you can use to help you. Of course, I have an entire course that I've designed to teach us how to do this, but in the essential elements are these. Using the plan, starting with that best known match, you found these best mystery matches, this group of people that probably can help us answer our question. And now you have to do genealogy to figure this all out. The SMOMS strategy helps us to both do what I call find your generation of connection, which is how far back in the family trees of these individuals do you need to go before you're going to find your common ancestor. So if this person, you decide you don't connect with them until they're 3 times greats, you know how much genealogy you need to do. You need to find their 3 times greats. You can also use SMOMS in that due genealogy step. So let me demonstrate how this works. At the core of this SMOMS strategy is something I call a bubble group. So a bubble group is a group of individuals who are sharing at least 400 centimorgans with each other. Remember, a centimorgan is just a unit of measure of DNA, and when you share 400 or more, it usually means that you are related to these people as first cousins or closer. Bubble group are people who are first cousins or closer to each other. Okay? So if we look at this group of matches we gathered using Tom, we used the shared matches tool, we gathered these matches. Now we need to know how are they related to each other. So we look at Paul and we see that Janet is sharing 886 centimorgans with him. So by looking at this shared matches of matches tool, we can see they are very closely related to each other. They form a bubble group with each other. So the theory is you go through that network of individuals that you know is related to the Richter line, and you're looking for bubble groups. How many of the people in this list have a close relationship to each other? And here's the great thing about it. Once you know that Janet and Paul are first cousins to each other, it doesn't matter if Paul doesn't have a tree, because Janet does. So instead of wasting all your time trying to message Paul to get you to write him back or use the online stalking strategies to figure out who Paul is, you don't need it, because you know he's her first cousin and she has a tree. Now, the great thing is if Paul does have a tree and so does Janet, and you know they're first cousins to each other, then immediately you know which branch of their family you connect with. And now, instead of being faced with an entire tree that you're not sure how you connect with, you can focus your efforts on just one branch. It's pretty magical, actually. So we created this Shared Matches of Matches course in the fall. And honestly, of all the work I've done in 25 years in genetic genealogy, I'm most proud of this. It took a long time and a lot of brain power, but I feel like it is revolutionary, and that's not hyperbole. It changes the way you think about how your matches connect. And it's all based on these little bubble groups. Okay, so after you find all the bubble groups, then you do genealogy. Now you have these individual bubble groups of people who are related to each other, but how are they all related? And so in the Big SMOMS process, I teach you how to find second cousin groups and third cousin groups and fourth cousin groups, and to create a genetic family tree for your network. But ultimately, you'll have to do genealogy still, right? You need to figure out who were their common ancestors. And so the SMOMS just helps you do that faster and more efficiently. So you find that Paul and Janet and Beth and Chris and Duke all connect to this Lewis Hoffman who married Sophia Beidler. And then I want you to just take a breath and say, I did this. Because right now, you're looking at your missing family. Once you've figured out how your matches are related to each other, you know somehow you are related to this family. And even if at first you can't exactly figure out how you fit in, these are your people. These surnames, these stories, they've been lost for all of these generations because you don't know who this Richter man married. And now, for the first time, you're looking at them. It's this family somehow. So then how do you get from, yay, I found my family, to this is how we're connected? Well, ultimately you do genealogy. But if you wanted to do a little bit more genetic genealogy, you could turn to the What Are the Odds tool. So the What Are the Odds tool is a tool available at the DNA Painter website. Johnny Pearl, the genius mastermind behind all of this, is here at RootsTech. He has a booth in the exhibit hall. He's a fabulous person and brilliant at what he does. And the Watto tool essentially allows you to ask this family tree you just created, do I fit here? What about over here? Could I be a descendant of this particular sibling, or maybe it's this other one? And it mathematically gives you percentages that tells you how likely it is that you fit in to these different places in the tree. It's truly fantastic. And it's a tool that you should all be using once you've reached this point. Once you've found a group of matches who are related to each other and you can see their common ancestor, it's time for you to use Watto to figure out how you fit into their tree. And then you do genealogy. You find the record that connects you in the way that Watto has suggested that you should connect. And then you've done it. You figured out that Albert Richter married a daughter of Lewis Hoffman and Sophia Beidler. And you do genealogy to see how many daughters did they have and who was in the right place at the right time. And you narrow it down as much as you can. And sometimes you still won't 100% know if you can't find that marriage record. But DNA has led you down a path that has shown you exactly which records to look for. It's connected you to families and surnames and places that you didn't have before. And all of those things open up new research avenues for you. And you did it all with just one match. Yes? Yeah. So maybe you're still thinking, Diane, you totally oversimplified it. You didn't use just one match. There was a lot going on there. But the truth really is, we did. We made button soup. We made our family tree by starting with just one match, just that best mystery match. It led to all of these people that we ultimately then had to use in order to find our family and our connection. But it all starts with just one match. So any of you who are feeling overwhelmed, intimidated by genetic genealogy, I want you to know it's as simple as finding that match to start with. Use through lines, theory of family relativity, the 23andMe tool, cheat, and then verify, and then start. So in the book, you can see that Donald, Uncle Scrooge there, he came along. He brought the cream, he brought the turnips. There are other things you're going to need, the SMOMS tool, the Watto tool. There are certainly things you're going to need to enhance the experience of your family tree. But ultimately, again, it starts with just one match. And just in case you didn't quite believe me, on Wednesday, I was in the exhibit hall setting up my booth, and I met Mark. We were actually standing in line to check in at our exhibitor booth place, and he turns and he's like, well, as long as we're both waiting in line, can I tell you something? And I said, sure. And he said, well, I went to your class last year here at Roots Tech, and you told me I was doing it all wrong. And I was like, I did? I'm sorry. But he's like, no, it was good. It was good. And after I learned that I was grouping my matches all wrong, I went back to my booth, and he started again using just one match, this best known match strategy. And within, I don't know how long, not very long, he realized that the answer to his question had been sitting here the whole time. He realized that his grandfather was not his grandfather. And he said he mourned the loss of all the research that he'd done on that line all the way home. But his grandfather, the one he grew up with, he described as the worst kind of man. And his father is still living, and he talked with him and said, Dad, how would you feel if this man that you grew up with turned out to not be your father? And he said, I couldn't get better news than that. And Mark said, well, he's not. And for a man who'd grown up worried that he was biologically the same as a horrible person, it was a huge relief. Just one match can change a life. Okay? So we have a few minutes for questions, but I do want to remind you to fill out the feedback form. So if you click on my class and then you scroll down, you can fill out the survey and tell Roots Tech how you think things went. I also have a button for each of you as you exit the room. So I'd love for you to take a pink button and keep it with you to remind you and encourage you that it just takes one match to answer your research goals. Okay, so if you need to go, feel free to leave. We're not going to judge you for not listening to questions. But if you have questions, we've got microphones here and there, and you're welcome to show and ask a question. She wants to know what happens if you only have one cousin. So this gets back to that idea of if you don't have a best known match, what do you do? And the great news is you can still do all the things. You just don't start in the same place that we do in that plan. Instead, you're going to have to start with a larger group of people, and then we do what we call split your network. So you kind of genetically go in and find your groups. It can still 100% be done. I do talk about how to do it in my book. We have a whole section on like splitting your networks. So you can look at that at booth 403 if you want. It's just a little bit harder, but still totally doable. Yes,
Diane?
sir.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to thank you because I've been on Ancestry quite a while, and I've seen through lines. I never really understood it, and I have a better understanding, and I have a brick wall I've been working on for years, and I think this is really going to help me. So thank you.
It definitely is. Awesome. Great. Thank you. Yes. So she's asking, when you're building out other people's trees to get them back to that generation of connection, let's say you have to go back to their 2 times greats, how detailed do you need to be? We talk about it as building quick and simple trees, which means you also cheat to build those trees. They don't have to be really good. So don't spend a lot of time sourcing. In fact, you're going to do something that we never recommend, which is just look at public online trees and take them for what they say. Family Search, yes, for sure you should look at Family Search. It's about getting there fast. Because once you find out where you're at, like once you get back to their 2 times greats, all you want to see is who's in common with some other match. That's all you need to know. And then once you start to see, oh, it looks like most of these people have that same Richter surname, then you start getting more serious about documenting and making sure they're right. Yeah. How can you tell their relationship to each other? You have to use the shared matches of matches tools. So at 23andMe, they're included with your test. At MyHeritage, you have to pay that unlock fee to have access to those tools. And it's like a $29 unlock fee. Once you've transferred your DNA into MyHeritage, you pay the unlock fee. At Ancestry, you need to have Pro Tools, which is that $10 a month membership. At Family Tree DNA, it's called the Matrix. It works a little bit differently, but that's included just with your test. So again, every company kind of has a way to do it, but you have to access it, I guess. Yes, over here. Thank you. She asked, would this work with double first cousins? You can use this strategy on people that have multiple relationships as long as you know in advance. Because double first cousins, you just know, oh, okay, when I use the shared matches tool on them, I'm going to get people from both relationships, which is fine as long as you know. Yes? Yeah, so half cousins are actually really helpful because usually you share 2 ancestors with someone. So when you use the shared matches tool, you're going to get people related to the couple. But if it's a half cousin, you only get matches related to the ancestor you share, which is actually really efficient. So definitely half cousins are very, very helpful. Yes? Okay, so she's got a half cousin that's on the line she wants to research, which sounds great, except for in their family tree, she has a multiple relationship, another connection through a totally different branch. So don't use them. It will just be too complicated and too tricky. Just don't use people that have multiple relationships if you can help it. Unless it's like a double first cousin like this lady was talking about, we can kind of get around that. But somebody who's like your third cousin once removed on a paternal line and then your second cousin twice removed on your maternal line, don't do it, guys. Stay away. They're both, it doesn't matter. 2 different lines, just stay away. If you can. Sometimes you can't, and we just have to deal with it. But yes, sir.
So there was the horrible grandfather. Did you find out who the real grandfather was?
Yes.
And?
He looks just like his father. They have a picture, like spit and image.
How'd you find him?
DNA, because he learned from my class how and what to do, and he did it. He did the genealogy, made the connections. I think he's passed, but maybe Mark will have to weigh in on that. We're going to write a blog. Like I just learned this week. We're going to write a whole blog post on it, so you can watch for that. But do we have any more questions? Okay, if you have a question, come up, and we'll let everybody else go and let them turn the room. Thank you so much for coming.